it's kind of learning actually what is it that you've done that's going to be valuable for a pharmaceutical company, but also learning about yourself. Like, what is it you enjoyed about the NHS? Because there is always something. What is it driving you? What's driving you, and what makes you unique?
Let's face it, burnout amongst doctors is sky high, and we're actively seeking other ways to make the most of our transferable skills beyond the usual career pathways. Welcome to Disrupting Doctors' Careers. I'm your host, Dr. Abena Babbas-Jones, and I'm on a mission to connect 1 million doctors across the world with the best in diverse career opportunities. So we are going to do a quick 10-minute on medical affairs for all of you doctors. It's one of the really, really common entry points for doctors who are getting into pharma and industry roles. And we have brought back the wonderful Mayur R Joshi, who is going to explain all he knows about medical affairs, considering he's been in it for some time. So Mayur, what is medical affairs?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? It's one of those where you can't
What
just...
is it? Yeah.
You can't just state like one thing, and there's not actually probably not even a sort of preconception of what it is. Like if I said to you, what is medical writing, you probably have an understanding in your head, broadly speaking, what that is. But in med affairs, and this is the reason I love working in medical affairs and sort of working with people in medical affairs, is it touches sort of all parts of the business. And essentially what it is translating your your clinical data into patient outcomes, essentially, right? If I put it into one line, that's what I'm talking about. So improve patient outcomes. That's how I look at it. But you work from early on in your development program when you're developing your medicine and sort of testing it and making sure it does work and how it works, etc., in the right population. You work from that early phase development right the way through to launch and actually life cycle management when drugs are coming off patent and things like that. And that's another reason I...
Sorry, I was going to say, so is this an analysis activity? Is it a communication activity? How would you describe it?
It's an everything activity. And that's why doctors are so valued, because of their, yes, doctors are doctors. They've got very high technical skill set. They're working in a, they're continuing to refine their knowledge, etc. But actually the skill set is quite broad, right? Communication skills, storytelling, you're patient facing, you're working cross-functionally, and we called it multidisciplinary teams in NHS, but in pharma it's cross-functional or matrix teams. You lead different types of people. You're an educator, you're a teacher, you're a mentor. You are also you're planning, you're being strategic, you're creating patient protocols. There's a lot of things that doctors do in the context of their work, and also all of that under pressure, high pressure environments, right? So and certainly now with the NHS workloads, etc., it's really high pressure. So when you take that all into account, the kind of characters that are built within clinical medicine, bringing them into the pharma industry is really valuable. All that stuff that I've just listed. Now, of course, you have to adapt it to the environment that you're going into. You're no longer directly patient facing, but you will be working with your peers or former peers. You'll be working with instead of say a physio, a nurse, a radiologist in your multidisciplinary team, you're working with marketing, sales, market access, regulatory, safety. So it's a cross-functional team.
So would you say it's like the GP of the pharma world in some ways?
Yeah, maybe.
Because it sounds like it's a very broad role where you could be doing a number of different things, and that could vary from department to company to company. So you need to be versatile. Yeah,
you definitely need to be versatile. You need to have a lot of that sort of what, I don't want to say soft skills, but the skills that aren't sort of, they're hard to teach. You sort of do a course on, let's say, people leadership, right? You can do a leadership course and learn a bit about the theory but then actually putting it into practice is a different issue. But it is highly, this is again another reason why it's a highly coveted sort of part of the industry, but also and it's challenging, but also really valuable, is that you marry high technical skills. So, for example, in medical affairs, you can be running a randomized clinical trial, or multiple analyses on registry databases, or you're doing implementation science studies, or very highly technical, I don't want to say projects, but activities, right the way through to actually we're thinking about competitor strategy, we're thinking about what's our communications strategy, what's our medical education program look like, which is also technical, but you're a bit higher level thinking. You're sort of market shaping, that kind of stuff. So it's more strategic. So you do have a variety of roles that you do, but over time, people will become specific types of medical affairs leaders. They might be highly technical and specialized in a specific disease area, or like me, I'm more broad and thinking more about that strategic piece, that functional area. Hopefully people see me as a good people leader and things like that. So so there's a lot of variety.
So for doctors who are looking at medical affairs as an entry point to pharma, how would you advise they prepare and stand out for applications and interviews?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and something that, like I say, I work with people to do that, right? And
you definitely do.
But the key.
So basically, Maya is the founder, CEO of Joshi Life Sciences, and he is also one of our faculty specialist mentors in pharma on the Doctors in Industry Incubator. And, he's got an extensive amount of experience working as a leader in medical affairs in big pharma companies. So he's mentored a huge number of doctors who are looking to get into industry, and also building the teams, mentored teams that he has also nurtured and grown, who've gone on to do amazing things. So I'm like your biggest advocate here. But yeah, so you definitely would know, as someone who's mentored doctors but also hired doctors. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I've been on both sides of the table, right? Obviously, having tried to break in and also hiring. But I think one of the things we don't understand when you're sort of first thinking about leaving the NHS or leaving clinical medicine, is really how to pick out the skills that you've developed, and how to kind of communicate that. So I know a really simple example is when I was going through SHO and sort of training and whatnot. You sort of do all the stuff for the tick box exercises that you need to do for your CPD, or I looked at it as a tick box exercise, or your portfolio, right? So audits and things like that. And I actually never engaged in that, because I thought, what's the point? I really want to leave. I don't want to do it. And you see a lot of people will come through and go, and their CV will be very heavily weighted towards what they've done in their clinical roles, right? So I'm medical registrar, and I lead this team.
I've worked at team. I've worked at a number of hospitals and done X, Y, and Z.
And then right at the end, you'll see, there's like 10 different service improvement projects that they've done, and like audits, and they've worked on the medicines management panel and whatever it is, right? And you sort of go, no, that's the stuff that pharma companies are interested in.
Number one.
So it's kind of learning, actually, what is it that you've done that's going to be valuable for a pharmaceutical company, but also learning about yourself. Like, what is it you enjoyed about the NHS? Because there is always something. What is it driving you? What's driving you, and what makes you unique? So, everyone's done audits, everyone's done research, everyone's done publications, but what is it about you and your story? What are you trying to tell? Like, why is it you want to break into the industry? Or what are you going to bring? Those are a lot of the things that people aren't very good at. So
you'd be surprised. I mean, I guess really surprised. I'm not that surprised knowing what I know now, but the number of doctors that we see, like, why have you chosen pharma? And they give you all the reasons why they don't like their job, or all the push factors, what you get, all the push factors, but they're unable to articulate why the pharma industry, or why that particular role, and how they can add value to it. And it's like a big blind spot that we see time and time again. But you probably see that in interviews, right?
I see it so obviously when I meet people who want to take use me as a sort of coach, that I ask them, so what is it, what can I help you with, or why do you want to join, whatever. And you're right, they sort of, we talk, you'll know this as well, but we talk about push and pull factors, right? So NHS is these are all the reasons I want to leave the NHS. So the NHS is pushing them out. And I'm sort of go, okay, cool, that's fine. And that's all good. We know that, right? I know that. I understand. I can empathize. But what is it that about pharma or biotech or whatever else we're talking about is what is it about that in particular that's attracting you? And I think when you speak informally to people, they eventually get there and you sort of get a sense of it and you understand it, because I work with them and I get to know them. But in an interview setting, you need to be able to articulate that really well, and it needs to be articulated in black and white. And it's not a joke or a lie or an exaggeration to say, when people see your CV, they will make almost an instant judgment, right? Because they see so many, they look at your CV and they'll immediately kind of go, I'm interested in that or I'm not. And it might be something little, and like I don't necessarily do this because I'm very conscious about it, because I work with people all the time, and I work with them. I sort of go, you've left a lot of really cool stuff at the back of your CV. So I do kind of go through. But even me, when I've been hiring and I've got a lot of CVs, I come towards the end of the day, I'm knackered, I'm looking through the stuff.
Someone to have made it
I'll
really
see.
easy for you to make that decision,
Yeah,
right?
I remember one CV, and it said something. It was one of my pet peeves was like the first line. It was like, instead of would have, they had written would of, and I was just like, I can't do this. I was like, I'm done for the day. I was like, can't do it. So you have that, like, you've got to give that in that first page, that first line.
The best
It's got to
impression.
look right, and you've got to just give that message. It's not. The first impression is, you're right, is like the first second. I look at it, it's scruffy. Oh God, that's annoying. But then that
or
first
it's like
message,
the size of the font is like 8 or something,
yeah,
and you're like, I just
all of that needs to be right. But then it
Yeah.
really comes down to, when I'm going to put you in that yes pile, how are you positioning yourself to me as a hiring manager? And then in my mind, I quickly go, right, that's the profile I'm
But
looking
when you
for.
say
or that's not.
positioning, not many doctors really understand
Yeah.
exactly what positioning is. Like, what is that? What is
So I mean,
positioning?
I guess that it's your when I work with people, I talk about their kind of personal story, rather than, or you might call it personal brand. But what is it you want people to know about you, and how are you unique in your situation? So then I can make an assessment as to whether or not you are going to help me solve the problem that I'm trying to solve with this hiring process. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I'm hiring, in the past, I've hired a consultant from, as in a CCT'd consultant from the NHS, because I needed specific technical disease area knowledge, and they had experience in running clinical trials, in development programs, stuff. I had a need in my team, so that person filled that need. And a lot of other people who were probably very strong candidates for that role, for medical affairs in general, I just disregarded them. But that was because I knew the positioning of that person, how they were positioning themselves as a clinical researcher in a specific disease area with experience with development programs. They'd put that on their CV as their first line. Now, if they had flipped it around and said, aspiring medical affairs physician with a strong history in here, and here, then it would take me a lot longer to sort of get to that point where, oh, right, they've run clinical trials, they've been a PR. So you've got to understand the role you're going for. You've got to understand your value proposition, your unique position that you're bringing, and try and sort of bring the two together. And using your experience, you can't just make it up, obviously.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so you've got to kind of put the two together.
I was going to say, thank you so much, Maya. We have gone beyond that 10 minutes, but this has been really helpful. And for anyone that's following our podcast, we have another podcast episode with Maya, which is Pharma Jobs for Doctors, How to Get In. I think it is that one, right?
I can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember, but
it's
just
on your
search
channel,
for Pharma. Yeah. We've got the episode. And if you are wondering about positioning and everything that we've discussed in this short period of time, this is what we do in the Doctors in Industry incubator. So head on over to medicfootprints.org/industry with the opportunity to work not only with myself and the team, but also with Maya if you are particularly passionate about getting into industry. And remember, guys, this does not happen overnight. it takes time. And I think this is another thing that we haven't covered. And people do underestimate the amount of time it does take to really work towards getting your first job in industry as a pharma doctor. I spoke to a doctor who literally, I think, applied for I'm sure he said 80 jobs or something along those lines. And it took him, I think, at least 6 to 12 months to actually get in. And he said, I just kept on applying and I just learned every time I applied. And then got to a point where, he got to a point where actually, he managed to get in because he'd gone to so many interviews. And he just, that's a great strategy if you have time to do that, right? Not a lot of us have time to, but at the end of the day, just realize this takes time, and a lot of it is about your mindset shift. But anyway, to hear more about Pharma, go to our other episodes on Pharma and check out our website. All right, take care, everyone.
Thanks.